with regard to the potential prosecution of the press for the disclosure of material, that is not something that I've ever been involved in, heard of, or would think would be a wise policy.
From mid-May, the Attorney General Eric Holder testifying under oath before the House Judiciary Committee, claiming he had never heard of the potential prosecution of journalists by his Justice Department. But documents later revealed that he personally approved the labeling of Fox News' James Rosen as a potential criminal suspect. The committee investigated and released this report. Quote, the committee finds that Mr. Holder's sworn testimony in the Rosen matter was deceptive and misleading. Congressman Bob Goodlatte, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, my guest now. And, sir, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, we would like to see a change in leadership at the top of the Justice Department. So all 23 Republican members of the Judiciary Committee transmitted that report along with a letter to the president suggesting just that. You know, we don't have great hopes that the president will respond to that, but you know what? That's because there's a lack of leadership in the White House as well. And this lack of leadership and the failure to hold people accountable throughout this administration is a reflection of that. So we've given a just the facts report to the president, to the American people. They can judge, and we find it troubling not only that he gave deceptive and misleading testimony, but in the investigation we then found that it's a regular standard practice of the Justice Department to accuse reporters, in this case the chief Washington correspondent of your news organization, accusing him of being a criminal for the purpose of being able to violate in our opinion, violate the Privacy Act to get access to his emails. That's the wrong way to go about protecting the First Amendment. It's the wrong way to go about investigating leaks. And that's what this report makes very clear. So we also hope to change that practice at the Justice Department.
Understood. I mean to interrupt you there, but you called his testimony dubious. Did he lie under oath?
Well, there's no question that he gave false testimony. But the question about whether or not that is more than that, whether, for example, it's perjury, is, I think, not the case. That's the problem that we have with taking further action with regard to the Attorney General's testimony. We make it very clear it's misleading, it's deceptive, and that is as far as the evidence will take us. It does not show a criminal intent that's required for a perjury charge.
Okay, just to be clear now, this is specifically with regard to James Rosen.
It is. Well, first of all, the testimony took place before the Rosen matter was made public.
That's right.
So that's part of the problem.
All right.
His testimony was in response to a Democratic member's question about the potential prosecution of reporters, and really I think the AP case was in everyone's mind at that time, but I think the members of the committee certainly came away with the impression that the Justice Department was not doing things like what was done in the Rosen case, which became public just a week later when a judge unsealed the affidavit and warrant in that case.
This is what you also write, and quoting now on the screen for our viewers at home. Rather than admit that he gave deceptive testimony that Mr. Rosen was actually a target of prosecution and further raised the ire of the media, Mr. Holder instead represented that Mr. Rosen was never a true suspect, suggesting he backtracked when pushed. Do I have that right?
You have that exactly right, and of course that was in his response to the committee after we got access to that affidavit and warrant. We said, whoa, this is very contradictory to what you testified before the committee. We have a lot of answers to get from you. It took a long time to extract those, but the Attorney General finally did answer the questions. First he had someone else answer them for him, then he adopted their answers, but finally he answered the questions. Then we wanted to know, well, is there evidence that shows that Mr. Rosen is indeed a criminal co-conspirator? And both in the public answers and in the private testimony we found no such evidence, and therefore it is very disturbing that he would approve an affidavit and a warrant, and that the Justice Department would think it appropriate to accuse reporters of being criminals in order to get around the Privacy Act and get access to their emails.
Well, you say as much that Holder's view on law permitted him to tarnish Mr. Rosen as a suspect. Do you see this going anywhere? I know what you're going for, but I'm not quite sure you can advance the ball on this. Can you?
Well, We can advance the ball as we examine what has been done with regard to the abuse of the Privacy Act. We can pass new legislation. We don't think the recommendations of the Attorney General get there in any way, shape, or form. It's good that they're having that discussion, but we think more needs to be done, and we will pursue that. But we also think that this is a long line of lack of leadership at the top of the Justice Department by the nation's #1 law enforcement officer, and that's why we agreed on the Republican side unanimously to send this to the president because he needs to focus on it as well.
All right, we've got to run. Bob Goodlatte, thank you for your time. The Republican
thank you, Bill.
from